You're listening to The Streaming Wars, the podcast that discusses all of the latest happenings regarding your favorite streaming services. Find out which service is winning the war this time around.
Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of The Streaming Wars. I'm Dustin and Tony is with me and we're here to discuss everything from September 9th through the 15th. We have a decent chunk of news as usual to cover. There's been some more news articles in general, but not a ton to talk about, but we do have some things to discuss, so we'll get into that. We also have a discussion point that popped up based off of a Twitter feed that we'll talk about when we get there. So let's jump into news. Starting off with Netflix. Netflix has set an adaptation of No One Gets Out Alive, a horror film. The K-pop group Blackpink is getting a documentary at Netflix. Netflix has landed a Norwegian thriller series. Mara Brock Akel has inked an overall deal, who is the showrunner of Girlfriends in the past, among other series. Netflix has landed the film Malcolm and Marie for $30 million. This is a film that was actually able to be filmed during the pandemic and during lockdown. There are feature adaptions of The Kane Chronicles that are currently being developed at Netflix, and the old sitcom Good Times is getting an animated reboot at Netflix as well. Jumping over to Prime Video, Joe Exotic series is in development in Prime Video, and I know what you're probably saying, wait a second, wasn't there already a Tiger King series that was in development? But that time it was at Peacock, and Peacock, NBC, Universal's, there is actually multiple. There could end up being more, but the one that we've discussed in the past, Kate McKinnon is attached to as an executive producer, and she's going to be starring in it. That's going to be on different platforms within NBC Universal, specifically USA, maybe NBC, Peacock for sure, but there's another series that is actually being that's in development at Prime Video, and this one actually has Nicolas Cage as Joe Exotic. So that could be interesting, because if you're a Nicolas Cage fan, but this would be his way of getting into television with this new series.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing with the fact that there is also an ABC series as well. So it's good to know. Just it's good for you to clear that up, because I feel like, definitely myself, and I feel like there's probably people out there. There's just multiple Joe Exotic series. So for some reason that took the internet by storm, Tiger King, and evidently he's lived a very interesting of enough life that you can have two different series based on him. So that's pretty cool, and I guess that those are some goals for all of us.
All right, so jumping over to Hulu. Hulu has acquired Vice TV content, over 100 different hours of content that they have produced. Then jumping over to Paramount Plus. Well, what's Paramount Plus? Well, we'll get to that in a second. First off, there's a new deal in place with Amazon that will keep CBS All Access on the platform for multiple years. Then CBS All Access is going to be rebranded as Paramount Plus in 2021. This was actually just announced earlier today. Viacom CBS has confirmed that Paramount Plus will be the new name for the service, as they basically evolve CBS All Access into its new version. They also announced a couple of new series. There's 5 originals that were announced specifically for Paramount Plus when it launches. They also said that they have plans to bring it into international markets within 2021 as well, which would put it further ahead than a service like HBO Max, that while they are in the works of trying to get an international version, they have yet to conquer that step, while Disney Plus, obviously Netflix, Prime Video, they're already out there, but Disney Plus and Apple TV Plus are the two more recent ones that have actually gotten outside of the United States at this point. There is no news about pricing. The tagline says live sports, which would be probably the exact same live sports you would expect from CBS All Access. Breaking news, again, that's the same thing you get from CBS All Access, and a mountain of entertainment. And then finally, it says that there will be over 30,000 TV episodes and movie from the company's library that will be available on the service. That begs the question of, well, when you look at HBO Max, they bragged about 10,000 episodes or hours of content that they had. So the question is, will we be seeing HBO Max up their content levels as well as time progresses? Now, we've already had multitude of conversations regarding content that HBO Max could add to the service to bolster the overall count of hours that they have. Specifically, we've talked about Boomerang, DC Universe, and that's just some of them. They have tons of other content. I know recently they added a bunch of Adult Swim series that they already had as part of their library, but they added those to the service. So it's only a matter of time before I think that 10,000 hours slowly just goes up for HBO Max, especially with Paramount Plus on the horizon. The one catch, however, however, is Showtime. So Showtime is not included. It's not planned on being included with Paramount Plus, except in certain international markets. And I think that's it's slightly unfortunate. It says that Showtime will continue to operate separately, and there is probably most likely a bundle option down the line, but there has been no plans set at this point. So personally, I would subscribe to Paramount Plus in a heartbeat if it had the CBS All Access content and Showtime. I have watched plenty of Showtime content. I watched plenty of content that would be within the confines of what CBS All Access offers, but I would prefer if it was all in one. Even if they had a bundle, like currently Apple is offering a bundle for Showtime and CBS All Access for only $10 a month. If I was using an Apple TV device and was looking for an option, I would definitely go for that, because there are plenty of shows on Showtime that release that I do want to watch, because they do create a bunch of quality content. I just hope that that bundle option is something that they at least launch with very quickly, and it's not something where it's going to happen, way down the line or something like that, because I don't really want to pay potentially $10 a month for CBS or for Paramount Plus, and then on top of that, Showtime as well. Here's hoping that there is a bundle option very, very soon in the future.
Agreed. I think that, one, I'm happy about this idea of Paramount Plus. The more I hear about this CBS All Access Paramount deal over time, it just seems like something I'd be really interested in. I've really enjoyed a lot of the Star Trek content, and I've never really been one for a Star Trek fan. So that's pretty impressive. I really do enjoy a lot of their original content as well. I think CBS is pretty unique in the streaming space because they do have really good relationships with different sports leagues and streaming different sports leagues and sports games. I think that's a huge sell for the streaming service, especially right now with NFL's just kicked off this past week. A lot of people are watching that through maybe a YouTube TV or Hulu Live TV. But if you're able to watch it through CBS All Access, maybe just the CBS games, that's going to be a lot of fun. Even, if they have the March Madness basketball tournament, the college tournament, in March, if that's still a thing, that's a pretty huge sell for the streaming service. So, between that, they have a lot of content there that I would subscribe for, and I do subscribe. Now, I think adding Showtime would be a huge boom to the service, and just the level of content is just different. When you have a streaming service that's just built on delivering premium video, you can really tell different types of stories in a different caliber and a different quality level. You see that with HBO Max, of how the HBO shows are there's something a little bit different. There's something a little bit more. I'm going back through currently Westworld, and the level of the detail of that series is so much more than some other shows out there on some streaming services, just due to the high bar that they set for themselves. Also, if you think about it as well, like Hulu, they have like the FX channel and the FX library of content, which is very similar. So I think not having an easy bundle or maybe a true integration between Showtime and Paramount Plus, having a true integration there, I think it's going to hurt itself in the long run. So either I hope they have a really good integration where you have a bundle or ability to bundle or ability to have this add-on, which is super cheap, or they just have Showtime content through the Paramount service. Either way, they need to showcase, Showtime and bring that a part of the business instead of keeping it separate. It might be good short term to have it separate, because Paramount Plus already has a pretty sizable fan base and subscribers with the current CBS All Access subscribers currently, and they can just transfer that number over, and that's a pretty good starting base. And it might be that they've learned from HBO and HBO Max and Warner Media that trying to combine them all at once is just a little bit like spaghetti soup, and everything's just everywhere with Warner Media. So they might just be taking a page, or not taking a page from Warner Media's playbook and keeping them separate for right now, but hopefully in the future that there is more deeper integration there with Showtime.
All right, so moving right along, jumping over to Apple TV Plus, Moish Zander, who is the co-creator of the upcoming Tehran series, has inked a first look deal with Apple. Then we are jumping over to Disney Plus. Olaf from Frozen is getting an origin story at the service, while the Doogie Howser reboot has also gotten a series order. And then Mickey Mouse is getting a new series of shorts that will be coming in November on Disney Plus as well. Jumping over to Quibi, No Pulling Out Now, which is a Parenthood series, is coming to Quibi. And then there is a dance docu-soap On Beat has gotten a series order at Quibi as well. HBO Max, The Westing Game has landed a series order. HBO Max is expanding their Comedy Central offerings. They will be adding a number of Comedy Central mainstays like The Chappelle Show and Key and Peele to the service very soon. John Stanky has made some comments about HBO Max, and he stated that he is happy with the HBO Max progress. There's a couple of quotes that I specifically want to pull out. He was saying that as HBO as a service by itself, not HBO Max, but HBO, for a while the service was actually stagnant. They weren't really growing and they weren't really losing anybody, so they had kind of plateaued. They were just holding steady at a specific number for an extended amount of time, and the question was, how do you get more people to join the service at the price point that it is when you don't have that happening? And he said the only time it was really happening was when there was be a new season of Game of Thrones. You get a bunch of people who join and then they'd all slowly fall off afterwards, and that wasn't sustainable for the growth. So HBO Max was the next thing that made sense. He also made a comment about how there was a lot of comparisons from HBO Max to Netflix, and he said it's not really fair to compare us, a service that's been around for a couple of months, to a service that's been around for 10 years and is the industry leader. Obviously, we have to, get our footings, and they know what they're doing. They've been doing this for a lot longer. He gave a lot of praise to them. But the other thing worth noting is that he specifically said that while COVID-19 has had some impact on their production, they are specifically trying to build a service that's not just going to last a year, that it's meant to sustain the next decade. There are some good comments in there. It was worth pulling out. Yeah, definitely. You have to sit there and take a step back and say, okay, is he making these comments because obviously this is where they have spent an insane amount of money? AT&T as a company spent a lot of money to acquire Warner Media. Warner Media cost them a lot of money that added a lot to their existing debt. They get called out on that a lot when it comes to the investors and as a whole. But then on top of that, HBO Max launches. It maybe didn't do as well as they hoped initially, just based off of the fact that there was confusion between the variety of different HBO offerings and things like that, and they had to fix that, along with just issues with not having all their originals available. And you have to wonder, obviously he's the head of a company who wants to make sure that what they're doing is getting the right attention, so he's going to say good things about it. But I honestly am right there with him, and I think that you're not going to build a streaming service in a couple of months and say, okay, this is what we've got, and it's not going to change. There's still room to change for not just of HBO Max, but all of the services as they come out. We've got Paramount Plus now coming soon. Peacock launched obviously very recently. They're all going to shift and change their focus and things like that. And even to this day, Netflix, we've seen them start to focus on content that maybe isn't as expensive, but does garner a lot of eyeballs for the service with some of the reality shows that they've been doing recently. Services are constantly evolving, and I think that's an important thing to point out. So when people sit there, and this frustrates me because I enjoy HBO Max. I don't think it's actually that expensive because I previously was already subscribing to HBO as a standalone service by itself. So for me, I can see the value in HBO Max. I think it's a great service. Is there room for it to grow and get better? Absolutely. But I think that a lot of the criticism that a lot of the pundits out there have said about HBO Max, I think some of it's, they're comparing apples to oranges, and that's the part that annoys me. All right, so then finally with HBO Max, according to ad sales, HBO Max ad tier could be coming in Q2 of 2021. So that's like spring 2021. And that's specifically because it seems like HBO Max or somebody within Warner Media is starting to sell a lot of ad blocks that weren't previously available for network space and things like that. So I'm not really surprised if it does happen in early 2021. I think that an ad tier would sincerely help out the service, but also get a lot more people to join the service, because I think there's a lot of people who don't mind the fact that there's ads. I think it's just a matter of HBO content figuring out how to make that work within the ad world. But personally, I think it could be a good thing for HBO Max as a whole.
I agree. I don't think it's going to be a super net negative if they can structure their ad offering a lot like Hulu's, where yes, you pay for a lower price and there are ads, but I don't expect them to have like a true AVOD where the content's free and you just have to sit through ads. Reading this article, it does seem that there's a lot of effort and research into the appropriate amount of ad time per hour of television or per hour of streaming time that you have on the service. And it seems that industry executives are very aware of the fact that like on network TV, it's like 16 minutes usually is the average of ads per hour of content, where for different streaming services, it seems like the range is between 3 to 5 minutes of ads. So it's nice to see that they're very cognizant of that and aware that, hey, like you can't just copy over what you did from normal cable side of things to streaming. However, I mean, you need for ads to work, you need people to see them. And one ad agency executive said, if you launch a platform and you're not on Amazon, the Fire and Roku, did you actually launch? And that sums up what I feel like me and you both, Dustin, have said for a while about HBO Max, Warner Media not being able to come to a deal with Amazon to get HBO Max onto Fire devices and getting HBO Max on Roku devices. Like the Roku's about 40% of the streaming gadget, 40% of how people stream content on TVs, and then you got Amazon Fire, which is a good like 10% or something. Then everybody else is just not even close. And so because of this, it's yes, they're talking about projections of, okay, like here's HBO Max, here's what we think that we can offer you, and here's how we think that this should be able to go down. But there's a lot of, not confusion, I think, by these agency executives. It just seems like a lot of uneasiness because, these numbers are not necessarily true. Whenever they do get onto Roku and Amazon, which I think they will eventually, like they're going to have to. If not, I think it's a very dumb business decision. But assuming that they do eventually, it's what is HBO Max's true reach? And right now, you have a certain price point for these. HBO is putting out a certain price point for the block of times and stuff. And these agency executives are a little bit unsure because they don't actually know if this is a good deal or bad deal, because it could be that right now that they're not including Roku and or Amazon, like these prices they can get a steal in the future because they locked in right now, versus you wait a little bit, they do get a deal, HBO Max is on more devices. Like how is that really going to go down? So there's a lot to say here, and it's nice to see that other people are looking at HBO Max, a little bit of skepticism of it is an intriguing product. There's a lot to offer for consumers. It's very interesting. There's great content, but there's still some distribution issues. I think that's the biggest thing that's going to hurt HBO Max for a little bit is getting people on board and convincing them that, okay, we've got distribution figured out. It's going to be fine, because they have a serious problem, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. All right, jumping over to Peacock. Peacock has announced that their signups have jumped 50% in 6 weeks. They were at 10 million 6 weeks ago, and now they're up to 15 million signups. Now, it's not necessarily specifically paying subscribers, but that is people who have signed up, because as you remember, there is that free tier within Peacock that obviously adds to that overall sign-up number. Also, Peacock has won the bid for the reimagined Fresh Prince of Bel-Air series. This was after we talked, I believe it was 2 episodes ago we talked about this. HBO Max was considered along with Peacock. They were both said to be the 2 services that were very interested in potentially this. Well, Peacock has won it. So what I said last episode, where with Fresh Prince, HBO Max reunion, well, if HBO was hoping to garner some attention with that, they could not wait for that reunion special to give them the information that they needed, because Peacock ended up securing it. And not only that, but it also secured 2 seasons, not just a season, but Peacock ordered 2 seasons of the show. So that is going to be coming in the future to Peacock.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that they won the bid between, I think everyone thought the presumptive favorites would be HBO Max, but good for Peacock for winning this bid. I was a little bit hesitant about the show, but the more I've dived into it and the more I've seen the plans for it, it seems like it could really be Peacock's version of Atlanta, of having a show focused on, a black character and showing his life all the way through in the different parts of that and how difficult it is to be black in America. I think that it could be something really special, and hopefully that people will give it a chance. There's a lot of criticism, I can't say that word, online about the show, and it's like, we don't want another media company ruining a show that was good back in the day. but I think that this can really be something. And I hope that people do give it a shot, because I think it can really, touch hearts like the first one did. It's going to be different. Like, it's not going to be the same type of comedy, but it could definitely tell a message. So it looks interesting and good for Peacock. They desperately need some new and decent and good original content shows. I checked out some of them, and Intelligence, man, that was a rough show.
Yeah, there's a couple shows on there that I have been meaning to watch, but I haven't watched. But I think ultimately they do need a slate of shows that are going to draw more people in. And this show, if you've seen the fan trailer that was originally made that this whole new version of the show is going to be based off of, it is really, really good. And it's exactly what you said about how it could potentially be Peacock's Atlanta. That's a good comparison, because Atlanta is a great show, and this could be that for Peacock. So Peacock definitely does need more shows in general that are very compelling and are going to draw people in. And if Peacock can start getting content as good as the content that we've seen, like with the FX on Hulu content, or in some regards, maybe not to the same production quality, but something to the degree of HBO Max, like writing quality and things like that, I think that Peacock has a potential to really grow their actual subscriber count and not just their signups. So, all right, so niche streaming services, Funimation has expanded their anime offerings with a new deal from Viz Media. We have no news for any other streaming providers. Our main discussion is an interesting one. So there was a tweet that popped up from Nick Turner over on Twitter. He goes by the handle Newsy Nick, and there was a quote that he pulled from a Bloomberg article that specifically said Disney Plus, which debuted in November, signed up a remarkable 60.5 million subscribers in its first 10 months. The $7 a month service was priced to make it very attractive, McCarthy said, and the rate could climb in the near future. McCarthy says, "It's clear that we priced Disney Plus at a very accessible price point initially. There is pricing power, we believe, but that will come as we put more original content into the services." So Nick Turner, he specifically said, Disney definitely seems to be telegraphing that a Disney Plus price hike is coming. I'd be surprised if that's not $9.99 a month before the end of the year. That is our discussion, specifically this time around. I will say, personally, I think that the idea of a price hike before the end of the year is unlikely. And I say that because outside of The Mandalorian, they don't have any other high-profile content that's likely to hit the service. If Falcon and Winter Soldier hits the service, it's going to be very, very late 2020, because they still haven't wrapped production on that series, even though it was originally supposed to launch in August. Obviously, with production halts and all of that, it got delayed. They just recently got back to production, and I don't see that series coming out before the end of the year. It's just not likely to happen. So with that series not happening, they don't have any other big content. The Mandalorian by itself sure is going to draw in some people and things like that, but I don't see them being able to do the price point until they have at least a couple Marvel series under their belt, along with some of the other maybe mid-tier stuff. Like, we've heard of a lot of these reboots. They've got the Mighty Ducks series, they've got a Home Alone reboot. There's a lot of different projects that I think are like mid-level, where it's not the typical, well, here's some random animated thing that we have, that we're not really going to publicize a bunch about, or the behind the scenes things that we keep seeing as just kind of filler content that's been on the service. But I honestly believe by the end of 2021, it's definitely likely we could see a price hike. The one thing I will say is there was a lot of people initially who paid up front for 3 years, and they're not obviously going anywhere. Those were the people that, you and I was one of them. I paid up front for 3 years because I thought it was a good deal at the time. It made no sense not to pay for something, because it was like it came out to like $5 a month, I want to say. I think it was even less than that. I think it was like $50 a year, 3 years. So like $150 for 3 years if you paid up front, which compared to the current price of $7 a month, you're saving a bunch of money. I mean, you're saving more than $2 every single month with that at that rate. But that's not to say that, the price wouldn't go up. I honestly think that by the end of 2021, we'll probably have The Mandalorian season 3. You'll have Falcon Winter Soldier, the Loki series, WandaVision at the very least, maybe another one as well, plus all these other mid-tier content shows as well. It's definitely possible that they raise the price. But I will say there's a limit on how high they can raise the price, because as it stands right now, there is not enough content to warrant it being anywhere near the price of Netflix. I mean, like, there's content on the service, and there's lots of obviously library content that's older, but that content isn't the same as the amount of content output that Netflix is doing. So can't get close to the price of Netflix. It also can't get up there too much in price, because then the bundle between it and Hulu and ESPN Plus, that starts creeping up too, and then that bundle could be pricier than Netflix or HBO Max, which wouldn't help them either. So that's the one thing to keep in mind with that. What is your take on a potential price hike?
I tend to agree with you. I think that a price increase is, inevitable for many different reasons. But from a, pure rational perspective, like, they have 60 million customers paying a relatively low fee in terms of the streaming space. Like, of course, that they have room to bump it up, and they also have room to just earn cash. So from that alone, it makes sense that there's eventually at some point in time going to be a price increase. Now, just the timing of it, I think if there's at any time where there is going to be a price increase within 2020, it would be around when The Mandalorian season 2 comes out. However, I'm about 20 to 25% positive that would happen. So likely, 70%, I'm saying it's not going to happen. Just because of where Disney is. Now, if we weren't during a global pandemic and, Disney's biggest market right now, Disney Plus' biggest market is the United States, where a little bit of economic hot mess and people having less cash to, spend at different places. I don't think it'd be wise as a business move with Disney to raise their price increase right now and to potentially piss off customers who are, doing their best just to get by. I don't think that that's going to be a good business model. I don't think that that's what they're going to do just from that alone. I think 2021, there's probably going to be a price increase as Disney and Disney Plus figures out how to monetize the movies that they make and to get, their television shows, like particularly the Marvel ones, trying to figure out how to shoot those in a way that is safe for the actors and safe for the production crew, but able to actually get them out on time. It always facing delays, and then you have a pandemic that shut things down. That really hurts. So it feels like they're trying to figure that out, and they're going to get their step pretty soon about that. So yeah, I think there is going to be a price increase. Now, there is going to be an upper limit, and I do agree with you, because it's based off the amount of content that they have, and they have a significant amount of content. But as an adult trying to choose which streaming service I want, if I was a kid and I just had money, like, Disney Plus would be the thing. But as much as my daughter does love Disney Plus, and she watches a lot of shows on there, and it's also great because you can download content offline for your Amazon Fire devices, and she has one. So it's great for the kids, but for, the adults, for me and my wife, we spend a lot of time on different streaming services because we love The Mandalorian. We're so pumped to see it, and we love Marvel movies and Star Wars movies. But besides that, there's really not much else for, I feel, adults that subscribe to the things that I like in the shows and the content and the type of content that we like. There's just not much. So I think the upper limit would probably be about $10. That's how much I would really spend. And I'd really be spending it. It's for The Mandalorian when it comes out. It's for that. Maybe for the random movie that we watch, but then the rest of it's going to be for my kid. And I don't want to spend more than $10 on a streaming service for her when you can just go to YouTube and then you have to brave all those ads. But you can just watch YouTube and they have free kid stuff. So there's that balance that I think Disney's going to have to do and probably do some market research on. But I feel like nothing more than $10 would be fine. Now, they could do something like, a Netflix model in the sense of not in terms of their prices as they are of the 12 and the 15, but based on the definition. Like maybe keeping it the current price for standard definition and then maybe doing HD or 4K or HDR or whatever for a higher price. I think that's possible. I really enjoyed watching Mulan in 4K. That was really nice. I think it was 4K HDR. It was very beautiful. Some of the Marvel movies are also in 4K HDR. So that's something that they can do, and it's a way to monetize and not to get more of that pot of money, but then to also not lose customers who want to pay a lower end of a thing.
All right. So with that being said, there is a number of new trailers. Just call out a couple of them. Star Trek Discovery Season 3, that trailer has released. Obviously, The Mandalorian Season 2, that trailer just released as well. Talked about the deal when it took place. Trial of the Chicago 7 is coming into Netflix in October. That trailer, the first teaser trailer, that's out as well. And then finally, I Am Greta, the documentary that follows the young climate change activist, that is coming to Hulu in November, and that trailer is released as well. So take a look at the trailers. All of the trailers are listed in the show notes, which can be found on our website, thestreamingwars.io. With that, you can also check out all the other show notes at the website as well. There's links to all the articles we've mentioned here. You can follow us on Twitter and join our Discord to check out all the articles that we talk about here on the podcast and some that we don't. You can also follow us on Instagram for all latest announcements related to new episodes of the podcast releasing. And you can send us an email at thestreamingwars@gmail.com with any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, or any topics you'd like us to discuss on future episodes. Those are always greatly appreciated, along with any feedback wherever you are listening to this podcast. With all of that being said, for Tony and myself, this has been The Streaming Wars, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to The Streaming Wars. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram. Also consider supporting us on Patreon. Links can be found at thestreamingwars.io.